morning, everyone. Happy Monday. I hope you've all had a lovely weekend. This is your Monday English lesson. So this lesson, we are going to be continuing with our work on Kensuke's Kingdom. So for this lesson, you are going to need, get the right side up. Okay, you are going to need your planning sheet, which we worked on last week. Okay, so this would have been in your week 3 home learning pack. We've already filled in our flashback setting box and also our flashback build up. And you will also need your photocopy of Kensuke's Kingdom. Now, you've got a new photocopy in your week 4 home learning pack, and that is the one that you're going to need. And this photocopy starts with page 40, which is the July 28th entry, okay? So in this session, we are going to be focusing on embedding the correct use of tense, okay? So we've been writing in a particular tense up until this point. And to move our writing forward, we are going to be changing our use of tense, okay? So first thing that I want you to do is reread what you've written so far. So you should have 2 paragraphs so far. You should have one where you've set the scene of Michael alone on the deck, and you should also have a second one where you compared the calm to the storms that you've had in recent weeks. So what I want you to go through and have a think about is, what have you included so far, and what tense has this been written in, okay? So pause the video for 10 to 20 seconds and have a think about that. Okay, right. Before we go on to talk about what I've just asked you to have a little think about, we are going to read just a little bit more of Kensuke's Kingdom. So I would like you to, on your photocopy, make sure you're looking at page 42. Okay, and I'm just going to read you the last couple of paragraphs. Okay. Thank God it's calm. It'll help Mum to sleep. You can't sleep when you're being slammed about all the time. It's so dark out there. Black. Stella's barking. She's up by the bow. She hasn't got her harness clipped on. Okay, so I've only read you a short extract there, but what has happened? What has happened in the short extract that I've read? So Stella has suddenly appeared on deck. Okay, she's barking and she hasn't got her harness clipped on. And we know from when we read previously, and on February the 7th, Stella previously fell overboard, didn't she? And she didn't have her harness clipped on. And Mum's new golden rule was that you always had to be on deck with your harness on. So the next line in our book is, those were the last words I ever wrote in my log. Why do you think there are no more log entries? And how do we know this is not happening now and that we've been reading a flashback? Okay, so I want you to have a think about it. Pause the video for 20 seconds or so. Why do you think there are no more log entries? Okay, so again, I'm not going to go into too much detail about these things yet. These are just things that I'm asking you to have a think about, okay? So we're having to infer and predict a lot here. We don't know at this stage why there's no more log entries, but I'm sure you've got your own predictions as to why that is. So now we're going to link our flashback so that our reader knows that we are reliving past events as if we were there. But we are now going to describe the coming events as a memory. So up until this point, our narrative, our recount has been written in present tense. So we're imagining we're reliving those events as if they were happening right now. But now we're going to describe what happened next as a memory. So how could we link our work? Pause the video for 10 seconds or so. Think about what the LO was for this lesson. How could we link our work? Okay, so we are going to link our work by changing the tense, okay? We are going to switch from present tense to past tense. But before we can do that, let's have a look at the model and see how this has been done and what information we need to include. So Out of the corner of my eye, I notice a sudden movement. Stella has broken Mum's golden rule. She's on the deck at the bow of the ship. She hasn't got her harness clipped on. So here we are still using the present tense, okay? We've got I noticed, not noticed, notice. Stella has broken. She's on deck. We know that this is a contracted form, so this stands for she is on deck. So again, that's still present tense. She hasn't got her harness clipped on. So here we're still using the present tense and we're summarising what's happened. So you're on deck on your own, you've seen a sudden movement, Stella's at the bow of the ship and she hasn't got her harness clipped on. Then we seem to have a change down here, and this is what you're going to do when you write this a little bit later on in this session. So those were the final words that I ever wrote in my log. So just in that one sentence, we've switched from present to past tense. Because in the first part of the narrative or the recount that we've written so far, you are reliving those events as if they're happening now in present tense. And now we're going to switch to a flashback, okay? So we are now going to switch back and recount what's happened in past tense. So we're going to switch from our flashback and go into past tense. So what we need to do next is we need to plan what we're going to write, okay? So what do you see? That's the first thing you need to think about. So make sure you've got your planning sheet in front of you. We are looking at the flashback climax box, okay? So what do we see? What's going on? What is Stella doing? What's the problem? Okay, so you can start with Stella is barking. That's a key detail. This is a detail you don't necessarily have to put in, okay? But it's something that you might use to up level with key information. She is at the bow of the ship. Bow of the ship. Okay. Again, remember this doesn't need to be in full sentences. It can just be in note form. This is just for you to use in order to plan. Okay. So Stella is barking. She's at the bow of the ship. What do we notice? What is the problem? She hasn't got her harness clipped on. Okay, now I'm going to leave a couple of lines and your linking sentence, so remember now we're switching into the past tense, I'm going to say those were the last words I ever wrote in my log. Okay, you might choose to rephrase that slightly. Okay, you might choose to say from that day I never wrote in my log again. It's completely up to you, but that linking sentence is going to be written in the past tense. So your task is to finish our present tense paragraph. So for example, Stella has broken Mum's golden rule. She hasn't got her harness clipped on, okay? It's only going to be 2 to 3 sentences maximum. And then you're going to leave a line and include your past tense sentence. So those were the last words I ever wrote in my log. I have never forgotten that night. You need one linking sentence that takes us back from that present tense. Okay, so I'm going to leave this up for you. You may choose to pause the video here so you've got a model to follow as you're writing this. Think about techniques as you're writing this. So at the start here, I've got an adverbial, fronted adverbial, out of the corner of my eye. Tells me the manner in which something's happened. Also used a comma there to open that sentence. Here, I've got an apostrophe for possession. If you're going to talk about Mum's golden rule, remember that golden rule belongs to Mum, so you need to have an apostrophe before that S. She's on the deck at the bow of the ship. Again, we've got a dash here. So I've split. She's on the deck at the bow of the ship. She hasn't got her harness clipped on. I've linked 2 sentences together using a dash. That could also be done there with a semicolon. And then right at the bottom here, I've changed tense. I've gone into the past tense. Okay, right. So I would like you now then to have a go at writing your own linking paragraph. Okay. As I said, you're only going to have, I would say, 4 sentences maximum here. See if you can use an interesting opener to link them. So out of the corner of my eye, without realizing all of a sudden, okay? Rather than just saying, I saw Stella on deck, have a think about how can you open that sentence to make it interesting for the reader.